I never imagined that the walls of my own home could hold secrets that would unravel the life I thought I knew. I've lived in this house for over 40 years. Every creak of the floorboards, every faded wallpaper, every corner of this house has been a part of my life, a silent witness to the laughter, tears, and memories of generations. And yet, the thing I discovered one quiet evening changed everything. It started innocuously. I had been dusting the hallway near my son's old room when I noticed something odd. A faint draft seeped from the wall, almost imperceptible, yet enough to make me pause. I knocked gently, expecting the hollow sound of old plaster, but the knock returned an unusual echo, almost deliberate. My heart skipped a beat, an old instinct telling me that this was no ordinary wall. For weeks, I had sensed a subtle tension in my son, though I had dismissed it as the stress of adulthood. But now, standing there, the air seemed charged, almost warning me. I fetched a small screwdriver from the kitchen drawer, my hands trembling despite the warm tea I had sipped moments before. The panel, disguised to blend seamlessly with the woodwork, resisted at first. A subtle click, and then, slowly, a hidden compartment revealed itself. What I saw inside made my blood run cold. Not letters or childhood trinkets as I had half expected, but items that spoke of a life I had never known my son led. Documents, photos, and objects that contradicted every image I had of him. There were photographs of him with strangers, documents signed under names I didn't recognize, and a small notebook filled with coded entries. The dates were recent. He had been living a secret life under my very roof. I sat down heavily on the edge of the hallway chair, my mind racing. How could this be possible? My son, my boy who I had nurtured from birth, who once clutched my hand tightly on first days of school, who whispered secrets only I knew, was not entirely the person I thought I knew. And the more I examined the compartment, the more I realized the depth of the deception. The notebook contained a mix of cryptic codes and references to locations I didn't recognize. There were hints of meetings, transactions, names of people I had never heard, and some that were unsettlingly familiar. Some entries suggested he was gathering information, intentionally, deliberately. Yet for what purpose, I could not tell. Fear and disbelief tangled in my chest as I tried to piece together what I was seeing. I remembered the small incidents that had seemed harmless at the time. The late nights, the unexplained trips, the sudden phone calls he ended when I approached. I had excused them, telling myself he was an adult, entitled to privacy that I was overthinking. But now, each of those moments returned with new meaning. Each smile he had given me, each "I'm fine, Mom," now seemed like a carefully constructed mask. I felt an ache in my chest, not just of betrayal, but of a strange, mournful curiosity. Who exactly had my son become? I needed to understand, yet I feared what I might uncover next. The compartment also contained a small locked envelope, plain and unmarked. Something told me opening it would cross a line. I hesitated, knowing instinctively that once I opened it, there would be no going back. But my curiosity, mingled with maternal concern and dread, outweighed caution. As I slipped the envelope from the compartment, I noticed a folded photograph tucked behind it. It was him, as I knew him, standing next to a man I did not recognize. The man's expression was unreadable, his posture authoritative, almost commanding. Something in that photograph, the way my son's hand rested near the man's, spoke of allegiance, secrecy, and perhaps danger. My hands shook. I had never seen this side of him, and yet there it was, indisputable evidence that my son's world extended far beyond the life I had imagined. I spent the night pacing the hall, clutching the envelope, turning it over in my hands. Every instinct screamed at me to stop, to ignore what I had found, to pretend the walls held nothing but dust and echoes. And yet, I could not. I had to know. I had to know. I had to confront the truth, no matter how unbearable it might be. The first rays of morning light filtered through the lace curtains, catching dust in the air. I sat by the window, envelope in lap, notebook, and photographs spread around me. I remembered the boy who once ran barefoot through the garden, who leaned on my shoulder when storms frightened him, who laughed with abandon at my corny jokes. That boy seemed a lifetime away, replaced by a version of him I did not recognize. By midday, I had resolved to dig deeper. I carefully transcribed the notebook entries, photographed the documents, and began comparing them to what little I could verify. Yet, each step I took drew me further into a labyrinth I was ill prepared for. And yet, despite the fear, a strange thrill surged through me, the urge to understand, to connect the pieces, to discover what my son had become. It was then, as I moved a loose floorboard, that I found something even more shocking. Beneath it, hidden in a tiny cavity, were objects that no parent should ever imagine discovering. I stared, breath catching, heart hammering. These items spoke of intentions, of plans, and of secrets my son had taken with him into adulthood, secrets that could not have been born from innocence. I knew that opening these doors, uncovering these hidden truths, would change everything. And yet, there was no turning back. The walls of my home, which had held only love and memory, now held questions I did not yet have answers for. I looked at the envelope one more time, my fingers brushing the edges, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing down on me. And in that moment, I realized the person I thought I knew, my son, was not just hiding things from me. He was hiding himself entirely. I could feel the story of my own life, my own memories, folding in on themselves. Every moment I had spent raising him, every word I had spoken, every lesson I had tried to teach him, now carried a shadow I could not ignore. And I knew with a clarity that made my heart pound that the coming days would force me to confront not only my son's secrets, but the fragile boundaries of trust, love, and the family I thought I understood. I hesitated for a moment, then opened the envelope. And what I saw inside changed everything. The envelope trembled in my hands as I peeled it open, my fingernails digging into the paper as though I could steady my shaking heart through it. Inside, carefully folded, were several photographs, some letters, and a tiny key. And each item seemed insignificant on its own, yet together they painted a picture I could barely comprehend. The first photograph made me gasp. It was my son, but not the boy I remembered, nor the young man I knew. He was older in the photo, wearing a suit, standing with people who looked dangerous. Their expressions were stern, calculating, as if they were actors in a story I wasn't supposed to see. I recognized a location in the background, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. My stomach churned. I had passed that place countless times, never knowing what happened inside. The letters were even more unsettling. Written in careful, deliberate handwriting, they spoke of plans, meetings, and secrets. My son had been involved in things I could not yet name, things that made my blood run cold. One letter referenced a meeting at midnight. Another hinted at someone watching him, someone he trusted but feared. Each word was coded, each sentence measured, and the deeper I read, the more I realized this was a life kept hidden from everyone, except perhaps the people he was now entangled with. I tried to make sense of it all. My son had always been private, yes, but this was beyond secrecy. It was a double life. And the key, small, ornate, and mysterious, suggested there was more to uncover. I had the sense that it opened a door, or perhaps a box, that would reveal even deeper truths. My mind raced with questions. Was he in danger? Was someone else in danger? Or was he the one planning something I could not yet imagine? As I sat there sifting through the contents, I heard the familiar creak of the front door. My heart leapt. Could it be him? Or had someone followed me here, knowing I would eventually find this? I quickly gathered the letters and photographs, shoving them into my cardigan pocket, and tried to act normal as my son entered the living room. He smiled, warm and familiar, as if nothing had changed. "Hi, Mom," he said, his voice carrying that same comforting tone I had always loved. I forced a smile, nodding, pretending to read a book. But my mind was elsewhere, spinning. How could he look at me with such ease when I had just uncovered a life he had hidden for years? I had to know more. That night, after he went to bed, I returned to the hidden compartment. Using the tiny key, I unlocked a small metal box tucked beneath the bottom of the compartment. Inside, I found journals, more photographs, and a small USB drive. My hands shook as I picked it up. This was no longer a matter of curiosity. It had become a necessity. I needed answers, no matter how frightening they might be. Plugging the USB into my laptop, I discovered files labeled with dates and locations, all recent videos, documents, photographs. They painted a picture I couldn't ignore. My son had been keeping meticulous records of his activities, tracking movements, conversations, even threats. The videos showed him meeting people I had never seen, exchanging envelopes, shaking hands with strangers who seemed both familiar and unfamiliar. I felt a chill down my spine. He was not just living a secret life, he was part of something dangerous, something calculated. I replayed one of the videos several times, my mind racing. My son was speaking quietly to a man, passing something small across a table. The man's face was shadowed, but his demeanor was commanding. My son's hands were steady, his expression calm, almost professional. The boy I had raised, the one who once clutched my hand during thunderstorms, was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. Questions swirled in my head. Who were these people? Why was my son involved? And most importantly, was he in danger or were others at risk because of him? I felt a strange mixture of fear, pride, and confusion. Somehow, despite the shock and disbelief, I could not stop watching, reading, and uncovering the truth. Over the next few days, I began piecing together the timeline. So, his trips, which I had casually dismissed, suddenly made sense. Late night calls, sudden disappearances, they were all part of this hidden life. And yet, there were gaps I could not explain. Entries in the notebook hinted at a purpose I couldn't fully grasp. Some words suggested he was protecting someone, others hinted at betrayal. The contradictions gnawed at me. Was my son a hero in secret? Or was he something else entirely? One evening, I decided to confront him. I needed answers, even if they were painful. "We found the compartment," I said quietly, sitting across from him at the kitchen table. His eyes widened ever so slightly, but he said nothing. I watched him carefully. Everything inside. The letters, the photos, the key. What does it all mean? He hesitated, his hands folding nervously in front of him. Then slowly he said, "Mom, I wanted to tell you. I just didn't know how." His voice was calm, yet there was an edge of something I couldn't name. Fear, perhaps, or guilt. I leaned forward, my heart pounding. "I've seen everything, son. Son, you can't hide this from me. I need to understand." He sighed, running a hand through his hair, and finally spoke. "It's complicated. I've been trying to protect you, all of you. There are people out there who aren't safe. People who I've had to watch, track, keep tabs on. But I can't explain everything right now. But you need to know, I'm not who you think I am, and I'm not here to hurt anyone in this family." His words made little sense at the time. They sounded like excuses, like half-truths carefully wrapped to protect me. Yet there was an honesty in his tone, a vulnerability I had rarely seen. I wanted to believe him, and yet fear rooted me in place. My son, the boy I had raised, the man I thought I knew, was entangled in a world that I had no part in. And for the first time, I realized just how fragile our understanding of one another could be. That night, I returned to the hidden compartment. The more I uncovered, the more I realized the complexity of his secret life. Each letter, photograph, and journal entry added layers to a story I had never imagined. My son's life was no longer just his. It had ripple effects that touched people I couldn't even name. And I knew, deep down, that I was now part of this story too, whether I wanted to be or not. Sleep eluded me. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, haunted by the duality of the son I knew and the man I was discovering. The questions were endless. Was he in danger? Were we all? Could I trust him? Or had trust itself become a fragile, dangerous illusion? By morning, I had made a decision. I could not sit back and hope that ignorance would protect me. I had to follow the trail, uncover the truth, and face whatever consequences awaited. I had to understand my son, not the boy I raised, but the man he had become. And as I looked toward his room, peaceful in the morning light, I realized that the journey ahead would test everything. Our relationship, my courage, and the very boundaries of trust. But I knew one thing for certain. I could no longer pretend I did not know. The walls had spoken, the compartment had revealed, and the envelope had delivered a truth I could not ignore. I had discovered my son's secret life. And now I had to confront it, piece by piece, no matter how terrifying the revelations might be. The days after that conversation were heavy with unspoken truths. I watched my son closely. Every movement, every glance, trying to read him, to find the line between the man I had raised and the stranger who now lived under my roof. I realized, with a sinking heart, that I could no longer look at him without suspicion or fear. And yet, it was a fear wrapped in love, twisted and impossible to untangle. Late one evening, I returned to the hidden compartment. I had become almost obsessed, unable to leave it alone. Each visit uncovered something new: a note tucked into a photo, a small object hidden behind the lining, a journal entry partially burned but still legible. The deeper I dug, the more complex his life appeared. There were references to people who had vanished, cryptic messages about debts and threats, and mentions of places I had never heard of. I felt as though I were staring into a world I was never meant to see, yet I could not turn away. One photograph stopped me cold. It showed my son standing near a forest edge at dusk, shadows stretching unnaturally behind him. Next to him was the man from the earlier photo, the one whose presence had already made my skin crawl. In his hand, my son held an envelope similar to the one I had found. My heart raced. But what was in those envelopes? Who were these people? And why was he so calm, so deliberate, as if he had done this countless times before? That night, I overheard him on the phone. He spoke in hushed tones, careful not to reveal anything, yet the tension in his voice betrayed urgency. Yes, it's done. No one saw anything. Everything is secure. I'll handle the next part myself. My ears burned as I realized the weight of what he carried. I spent the night poring over his notes again, trying to piece together the logic, the sequence, the intentions behind his actions, but every answer I found seemed to lead to more questions. I understood only one thing with absolute clarity. My son was no longer just my child. He was a man enmeshed in shadows, living a life I could not ignore. And in that moment, I knew the final, terrifying truth. The hidden compartment, the envelope, the photographs, all of it was only the beginning. The story my son had kept from me was far larger, far darker, and far more dangerous than I had imagined. And now I was part of it, whether I wanted to be or not. I looked at the clock. Midnight approached. Shadows stretched across my home, as if the walls themselves were whispering secrets to me. I felt the weight of inevitability pressing down. There was no turning back. I had seen too much, learned too much, and the next step, the step I was about to take, would change everything. I didn't know what awaited me, only that I could not stop. My son's life, and perhaps our family's safety, depended on uncovering the truth. And though fear clenched my heart like a fist, I resolved I would follow him into the shadows, because the person I thought I knew, my son, was gone. And the one I had yet to fully understand was waiting for me in the darkness. I had been following shadows for days, walking a path I never imagined I would take. Each discovery pulled me deeper into my son's hidden world, yet I still didn't know the full story. I had seen photographs, letters, envelopes, and even hidden compartments, but the truth, the ultimate truth, was still beyond my grasp, and deep in my heart, I feared what I might find. It was late one evening when I noticed a faint light coming from the garage, a space my son rarely used. Something told me that tonight, the answers would be revealed. I approached slowly, my hands trembling, each step echoing through the quiet house. As I opened the door, I froze. The garage had been transformed. Stacks of documents, photographs, and files covered every surface. A large map pinned to the wall had dozens of markers, strings connecting locations I could barely comprehend. And in the center, my son was there, examining something on a small table. When he looked up, our eyes met. There was no mask tonight, no pretense. Only the man I had been trying to understand and the son I had raised. "Mom," he said quietly, almost gently, "I knew you'd come here eventually. I swallowed hard. I needed to know the truth," I said. Everything. Why all of this? Who are you involved with?" "What is all this for?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I should have told you sooner. I wanted to protect you, but it's complicated. I've been part of something bigger than you can imagine, something that requires careful secrecy. I can't explain everything yet, but I can show you pieces for you." And then he began to explain. The letters, photographs, and notes weren't about crime or betrayal. They were about exposing a dangerous network operating in our city. People involved in corruption, fraud, and manipulation. My son had stumbled upon them years ago and had been tracking their movements, gathering evidence, and keeping records. The secrecy, the hidden compartments, the late night disappearances, they had all been necessary to keep us safe. My knees nearly buckled. All the fear, the suspicion, the heartbreak, it had been based on misunderstanding. The man I feared had been protecting his family all along, yet the magnitude of his undertaking stunned me. He had been living a double life, balancing his own safety with a mission that none of us could fully comprehend. There were photos of him meeting people I had never seen, yes, but now they made sense. He was collecting evidence, exchanging information with authorities in secret, ensuring that the network would eventually be brought down. The envelopes, the notebooks, the USB drives, they were tools of protection and strategy. I felt a mixture of relief and awe. My son, my boy, was brave in ways I could never have imagined. And yet I couldn't deny the fear that had been so real these past days, the realization that we had been walking alongside danger without even knowing it. He looked at me, his expression softening. Mom, I didn't want you involved. I didn't want anyone in the family to worry. That's why I hid it all. But now I realize you already know too much, and maybe you were meant to see it. I needed someone I could trust if anything went wrong. I sat down, overwhelmed by emotion. My mind replayed every secret I had uncovered, the letters, the photographs, the hidden compartments. What had once seemed sinister now felt like a testament to his courage, to the lengths he would go to protect the people he loved. And I realized that trust, even when fractured by secrecy, could still be rebuilt. He pulled out one final photograph, the one I had seen first in the envelope. This time, I understood its meaning. The man in the photo wasn't a threat. He was an ally, someone guiding my son in this dangerous mission. The warehouse, the maps, the notes, they were all part of a careful plan to gather evidence without putting anyone in harm's way. Tears streamed down my face as I took in the full picture. My son, the one I had feared, mistrusted, and almost lost to suspicion, was a hero in a quiet, hidden way. He had carried burdens I could never have imagined, making choices that no parent should have to understand so young. That night, we sat together in the garage, sorting through the remaining files. He explained what each item meant, walking me through his secret life with patience and care. And as I listened, I realized how little I had truly known, not just about him, but about the strength, courage, and resilience of the people we love. Finally, he looked at me and said, "Mom, I'm still me, the same boy who needed you when he was scared. I just had to grow in ways you couldn't see. I hope now you understand why I had to hide this life. I did it to protect all of us." I nodded, holding his hand tightly. "I understand, my son, and I'm proud of you. But please, promise me you'll be careful. I can't lose you. Not like this, not to secrets and shadows." He smiled faintly, and for the first time in days, the house felt like home again. The walls no longer whispered danger. They held the story of a son's love, sacrifice, and courage. In the days that followed, the hidden compartments were left open, the letters and photographs carefully stored, and the secret life that had so terrified me became a story of resilience and protection. My son had lived a life of shadows, yes, but he had emerged as someone I could finally respect, someone I could trust again. And as I sat in the quiet of my home, I realized something profound. And sometimes the truths that frighten us the most are the ones that reveal their strength, their love, and their humanity. I discovered a hidden compartment in the wall, and what was inside proved that my son wasn't just the person I thought he was. He was so much more. And now, after fear, doubt, and suspicion, I could finally see him for who he truly was and love him all the more.